why my prescription ain't ready? Y'all had all day.
To that Pharmacist show. I am Dr. Q, and I'm here with my beautiful sisters, Dr. Tiff, Dr. Shamita, and Dr. Mariko. We're here today bringing you the top 5 reasons your prescription is not ready. So we're doing this episode today in the 5-part series. Let's start with workflow and competing priorities.
Yeah, so workflow can be a challenge when it comes to getting your prescription in retail pharmacy. There are generally 5 steps in the filling process and the retrieving process of your prescription. So first is your prescription is received by the staff, either via e-prescription or paper prescription, or it's faxed to us. Once it's dropped off in whatever manner we receive it, it's prepared for what we call order entry and processing. And what that means is we literally have to type up your prescription. And in doing so, you don't want to make errors in typing up the prescription, making sure that, your name matches, the drug matches, and so on and so forth. From there, this can include making a label for your prescription, along with instructions and any other med advice or med education that might need to be attached to that drug. At the same time, that drug is also billed to your insurance company or whatever discount card you might have, or if you're cash paying, you're paying out your pocket that way as well. From there, we go to the filling process. So that is the staff, which is usually the technician, filling the medication. They go ahead and they grab the bottle. Some pharmacies have the advantage of having a machine that counts. Most of the time it occurs by hand. So we're literally counting those pills by hand for you. In addition to that, this entails preparing the right label, compounding the medication if we have to compound it, creating in the process of creating a final product for you. There's some obstacles that can come in there where we talk about competing priorities. We may carry 2 different manufacturers. Generally, we don't like to give you 2 different manufacturers when we're filling your prescription. That may cause us to have to go to the computer and to make changes. In addition to that, you have verification, which happens with the pharmacist. So that means that the pharmacist, as we said in a previous show, if you looked at our premiere show, the pharmacist goes through the verification process of where they do drug utilization. That is looking at your allergies, making sure that the medication is appropriate for your disease state, ensuring that there are no interactions with any other drugs that you're taking. And then also verifying the prescription for accuracy and making sure that the dose is safe for you, that the route is the right route. So if it's supposed to be by mouth, if eye drop is supposed to go in your eye, or a drop was sent in that was intended for your eye, but it says eardrop on it when it comes in.
And hold on, Dr. Tiff. Since we're talking about those competing priorities, you got a phone call and the patient wants to see you at the counseling window.
Oh man, I got to stop what I'm doing real quick and go answer that question or questions, depending on what it is. So, and that's a good point that you bring up, LaKoya. So we're talking about competing priorities through this whole process. There are other things that are going on in the background. That may be a doctor's trying to call in a prescription. I got a patient that wants to talk to me about a drug that they're picking up or over the counter. I don't know, guys. What are some other competing priorities that may come into play during the filling of a prescription that you've experienced?
So I think previous videos on one of the services we provide are vaccinations. So that is another thing that we have to work into our workflow. And so at a pharmacy level, patients don't have to bring in a prescription to receive that vaccine. So they can just walk in and request the COVID-19 vaccine, or just walk in and request a flu shot. So we also have to work that into our workflow as well. And we're in the middle of a pandemic, so we're constantly getting people in to receive the COVID-19 vaccine. We have flu season approaching, so we're going to have nonstop patients coming in wanting to get the flu shot. In addition to the flu shot, they might also want the pneumonia vaccine. So we also have to work that into our workflow as well. And that can be very time consuming because we have to actually prepare the vaccine to administer to the patient, have to go out and administer to the patient, counsel the patient, and then come back and do paperwork. So all in addition to our daily workflow of actually filling the prescription.
Mm-hmm. I think the important thing for our viewers to understand is that that whole process that Dr. Tiff talked about of a pharmacist reviewing those medications to make sure they're not interacting is that we do that for every single prescription. So it's not just, it's not like you brought in 3 prescriptions and we just do it for you as a patient. We do that for each one of your prescriptions. And any viable pharmacy is filling about 350 prescriptions a day. Probably. The pharmacies that are slower than that is because they're like in a grocery store, or pharmacy is really just kind of a convenience for them to offer in addition to all the other things that they're offering in their stores. But for like a Walgreens or a CVS or a big name retail community pharmacy, they need to be filling about 350 prescriptions a day. So that pharmacist is doing those 350 drug reviews in addition to all the other things that we've talked about as well.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to interrupt. I was going to say in retail, we were considered high volume, and a lot of Walgreens pharmacies, when I worked at Walgreens, are pretty much high volume. So when you talk about 300, we were doing like 540 a day, 640 a day, and to talk about not having any overlap, like you said earlier, you got one pharmacist there that's in charge of all those prescriptions. You may have 2, maybe even 3 technicians, considering the shortage that we have out there. And unfortunately, when your prescription comes in, it goes into a queue. There might have been 30 or 40 people there before you that, and they're all prioritized based on need. And I'll be honest, when it comes down to the kids, and this is just me speaking, I'm probably a little bit more biased. I want to get that baby their medication maybe a little bit sooner than somebody else. I don't want to see a crying baby or a sick baby. But I say that to say is prioritizing, and asking the patient, do you need this now? And even making it very clear to the pharmacist. I think it's helpful to say, hey, I don't need this right away, or hey, I may need this like within the next 15 minutes or so. But I did want to say something else with regards to interruptions. There are times where we in a verification process, when we receive your prescription, where we may have to call the doc, to clarify a prescription. We may have to call a doc, especially if it's paper, because something's not legible on there. Have y'all looked at a doctor's prescription as a patient and been like, what is this on here? What does this say? So having the eyes to kind of articulate what the doctor's trying to say, and if it's not clear enough, and we definitely don't want to guess, we might have to make that phone call, and it's not always that easy to get through to a doctor's office. So that could be another reason why.
I think Dr. Tiff, you bring up some good points right now when we're thinking about, okay, this is one of the reasons, the competing priorities, all the multitasking. Can we give our viewers some helpful tips on how they can be supportive in this particular area of the competing priorities? I think you kind of went into that a little bit when you talked about how we'll ask, do you need this now? Or maybe can you wait for this? Because I think one of the things that I have noticed now, and I've had some conversation with some of my pharmacy friends, is that the restaurant industry now, I think they're feeling the same type of pressure that we were feeling before, in that you can walk into a restaurant and it looks like they only have, 4 or 5 customers sitting at different tables, and they have all these tables that are available, but you don't know how many pickup orders they have, how many curbside orders they have, how many delivery orders they have. The same way as when you walk into a pharmacy, just because you don't see someone standing there at the window doesn't mean that someone isn't inundated with a lot of the other work that's going on in the background that we just described. So would some of you all give some tips just from your own personal experience and how patients can be supportive of the fact that we are multitasking and juggling a lot of different things?
Big thing for me nowadays is most retail pharmacies have a way for you to view your stuff online or via app. And I think that is the most important. You can literally see just like we talking about restaurants, just like Domino's, you got that little tracker from the time your prescription has entered the pharmacy, what process in the filling process it is. In addition to that, you know, you can see when you're having insurance delays, you know, whether we might need your insurance card and stuff like that.
I want to end with one more helpful tip to provide to patients. And one of the biggest things for me is making sure you're not waiting until the last minute to request that refill. That way, if there is any type of issues or delays, we have a few days of wiggle room to get you your medication, and that way you won't go days without actually receiving your treatment. So just please make sure that you're actually reaching out to us a little bit in advance so that we can take care of you and meet your expectations.
And also, some pharmacies, like the pharmacy I work at, we do not have a fancy app. So just calling before you come may be helpful.
Yeah, I think those are all really, really great and helpful tips. I have one other helpful tip is, can we just give our employees and team members that are helping fill out prescriptions a little bit of grace?
Mhm.
I know when you arrived, you expected it to be ready, but it's not. And if it's not a life or death situation, if you could find it in your heart to be a little patient, take a couple trips around the store, you know, maybe look down the clearance section, the dollar aisle, or leave and come back through the drive-through if there is a drive-through. But really, everyone wants to create this positive experience, and the team members who are filling a prescription want you to have a positive experience as well. And so sometimes you don't know what that team member has had to experience that day. Everybody is short-staffed right now. So if you walk into a pharmacy and you see that the pharmacist isn't making eye contact and the technician is running all over the place, if your prescription isn't ready, give them a little bit of grace. All right.